Welcome to the 6th video showcasing a variety of accents from around the world. Here we interview an English teacher from the northeast of England. There are 2 offers at the end of the video, and to be eligible you need to watch the whole video and check out the details in the description below. Bronte, you're up.
Hey Al, and hi everybody else. My name's Bronte Rose Ainsley and I'm from the northeast of England. I've been a language teacher for 4 years now. I worked in Latvia for 2 years with Alistair, and then I moved to Palermo in Italy for 1 year, and then most recently I'm in Paris. The process of teaching. I guess the process of teaching is a very, very long one, and unfortunately I've never had the pleasure of being somewhere long enough to see any of my students from beginning right to the very end, if there is an end of, learning a language. But yeah, it's a very slow process, but it's a process that I really enjoy because, it can be different for different students, but when you slowly start to see the things that you've been teaching and the things that you've been presenting to your students starting to click and settle and become second nature, it's really something wonderful to see, and it does feel really rewarding. But yeah, it can be a struggle, I can't deny that, but I'm sure it's a lot more frustrating for the students than it is for the teachers. I think we have the easy job when it comes to teaching the language rather than learning the language. My inspiration for being a teacher, I think I've always known that I wanted to become a teacher, probably since I was maybe as a teenager. I've always enjoyed being a bit bossy, if I'm honest. I've always enjoyed being in charge. And I had some really inspirational teachers when I was younger. I really looked up to my dance teacher in secondary school. She was a really good role model for us. And she was friendly as well, instead of just being a teacher. That was nice. And my English teacher in college, I really looked up to her. She was really helpful. And I think having these strong influences in my life really helped to guide me and help me see where I wanted to end up in the future. I did actually want to be a dance teacher when I was younger, but my dad kind of pushed me down the more academic route. So thanks for that, Dad. But I love teaching. So yeah, I am grateful for it. And I am passionate about English now. It's something that I was good at when I was younger, but it's also something that I love. You can ask any of my friends. I love nothing more than talking grammar and boring everybody else. So yeah.
If you're getting value from this content, please give it a thumbs up, and let's get straight back to Bronte.
2 pieces of advice for English students that I would give. I mean, it's difficult because there's many things, many skills that go into learning a language, but I would suggest it's really important to stay positive. In my little experience of trying to learn languages, I found I can often get quite negative and down on myself, especially if you live in a place like Paris and the Parisians are getting grumpy with you and they won't let you try, and when you do try they get mad because you're getting things wrong. I can find I get quite down on myself and things can turn quite negative quite easily. So I think this is advice to myself as well as advice to everybody else. It would definitely be to try to stay positive and remember that no matter what you're doing, no matter how small and no matter how long it takes, it's progress, and it's better that you're doing that than nothing at all. And every little step you take is a step further. So try to stay positive and try to enjoy the process because, it's easier to learn something if you enjoy what you're doing. And then my second piece of advice would be to have patience. As I said, it is a long process, and I've witnessed students, again, get really negative and down on themselves because they're not progressing as quickly as they'd like to. And I think when you start the process of learning a language, you have to understand it's not going to be an overnight fix. You need a lot of patience, and you need to be kind to yourself and give yourself time. Accept that things aren't just going to click the first time that you're introduced to it. It can take time. So be positive and be patient when you're learning a language. So my favourite part of the Northern Irish accent, it makes me think of P.S. I Love You, the film and the book, I guess. So that's always a good thing. But I really like the rhythm and the intonation. It can be quite sing-songy. I think sometimes, like my accent where I'm from, it can be quite flat. But Northern Irish always sounds jolly. I've never heard a sad Northern Irish person. They always sound happy. So I think, yeah, the rhythm is something that I enjoy listening to. So my accent, I don't know, it's a bit mixed, I guess. Also because I grade it quite a lot of the time. Like now, I'm definitely not speaking to you how I would speak to my family from back home, for example. So technically, I guess you'd call me a Smoggie, which is someone from Teesside. But I was born in like the Newcastle area. So when I was a toddler, a small child, I was a Geordie toddler, a really strong Newcastle accent. And then when I was 3, I moved down to Teesside. That's when I picked up the Smoggie. And then I lived there until I was 18, moved down to Oxford for university. And I found I really had to grade my language for people to understand me. I worked in a pub, and if people ordered a pint of Coke, they didn't understand when I said cork, because it sounds like a completely different word. People would easily get confused. So even not moving country, just moving to the other end of the country, I ended up having to noticeably change my accent. So that was a big difference, and that's definitely stuck with me. And then obviously since then, I've lived in Australia, Latvia, Italy, France, and whoever I'm talking to, whether it's my students, whether it's my colleagues or friends, I find I'm always somewhere in the spectrum between heavily graded to completely natural Smoggie. So yeah, I'd say my language is always graded, unless I'm talking to my family. There we go. How is my accent similar or different to the Northern Irish accent? I actually think that Northern Irish and Northern English have some similarities. For example, I think we both flatten some of the vowel sounds. For example, the O sound. In Southern English, you would hear people say so. And after speaking to Al and watching lots of his videos, I can tell obviously he doesn't have the same pronunciation of this O. And it's a lot more similar to me. So I would say O. It's very flat. So, go. Whereas I think the Northern Irish is somewhere maybe it's in the middle of Southern English and Northern English. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that while it's more similar than Southern English, it's still a difference. All accents are different. So a skill that I'm passionate about, I guess I'm passionate about a lot of things. I'm passionate about being flexible and being spontaneous. I think both in and out of work, it's really important. I've learned being a teacher that you have to be flexible. You can't go into a lesson and just teach it as you've planned. That's rarely going to happen. I think every last lesson I've ever taught, I definitely end up changing things to suit my students' needs. So you have to be flexible on the spot. But also in your social life, I think that's really important. If you're with a group of friends, everybody wants to go one place, you want to go another. It's good that you're flexible. There's nothing worse than someone who's stubborn and sticks to their guns and won't change their mind. I love to be spontaneous. I love nothing more than to message my friends and say, hey, let's go there and do this. And if someone can say, yeah, okay, I'm up for it, let's do this, I really appreciate that in a person. And then lastly, to contact me, you can email me on bronterose.ainsley@ntlworld.com. And if you're up for it, you can get in touch and maybe get some English lessons if you're interested. So thank you, Al, for the opportunity to be on your channel. I've been very excited about it, and have a nice day.
If you're learning English, a reminder to get in touch with Bronte using the details in the description below. This is the 6th and final video in my Q&A accent series, and along with Bronte, I'd like to give a huge thanks to Mark, James, Nut, Kaz and Molly. Thank you for appearing on the channel, Al's Action English. If you haven't seen the other 5 in action, be sure to check their accents out over here. Horsham, Guildford, Thai, non-regional and Midwest American. Now, should you like to be considered to appear in the video in a future series on the channel, comment below using the details in the description below, and perhaps you can share your message with the world.